I tried out Wizard 101 for the first time ever in 2025. Can this 17-year-old children's MMO still impress today? Let's go find out. Before we even launch the game, the first thing that sticks out to me is the login, which just reinforces the real target audience for Wizard 101. Not only is the default age set up to be 13, this is the first time I've ever seen a launcher give setup tips like, you need to remember both your username and password to log into the game. So let's jump in and meet Headmaster Ambrose.
Aha! The spell is working.
Turns out we've been summoned by Headmaster Ambrose, quote, from a world that doesn't even believe in magic. And while it's an impressive bit of world building, the real winner here is the voice acting. On this channel, I've reviewed MMOs from World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy, and let me tell you, the voice acting from main characters...
Look, Gamma. Finally, we have found one.
...to strange, omnipotent narration...
Headmaster Ambrose turns to regard you intently.
...is incredible. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, since we still need to create our new wizard persona. Now, in Wizard 101, one does not simply choose what type of wizard they will become. No, we have too much whimsy for that. Instead, you get to do a little personality quiz to determine your magical aptitude. You can skip, but again, I'm trying to maintain my youthful whimsy here. I like to spend my time, classic personality question, by myself. Which of these is the most powerful? Okay, this one's a bit more natural sciences than personality. Look, I've sat through a hurricane and an earthquake in my time on Earth. You don't really sit through a volcano. Back to the good stuff. Which best describes you? Let's go, I am extremely creative. Most important thing in a story is all the characters. My favorite animal here has got to be a dragon. And I can't imagine the average child knows what a peridot is.
Peridot.
And finally, we get our answer. Fire magic. Now, I'm not gonna call BS, but I think I know which question carried the most weight. The descriptions themselves are a bit more gamey than whimsical, with selling points like damage over time and solo content viability. Next, onto our looks. I spend a bit just randomizing through, but I do want to point out the modern day style A and B for body type. Nothing wrong with it, but I'll point out a big discrepancy later on. But onto name, which again, in service of avoiding the creation of names like Poop Butt 5, Wizard 101 utilizes a wheel with preset names. And after spending some time, I come up with a wizard name that more or less sounds like a powerful wizard spell. Enzo Umbra Valor. And just like that, we are in tutorial mode. Moving around is as easy as WSAD, and you can use the mouse to look around. The only thing that's odd is that A and D, or left and right, turn your character instead of strafing. In fact, I don't think you can strafe at all, which is a little bit restrictive. Talking or otherwise interacting is X. I guess there's a first time for everything. But as a storm rolls in, we return inside the tower to meet our main antagonist, Malistaire. And when we run into Malistaire's goons, we get our first taste of combat. Wizard 101 at its core is a card game. You draw cards from your deck and cast them at your opponent. What I didn't know was that this isn't really a Fireball or Shadow Bolt type of wizard game. Flavor-wise, your magics are closer to summons, all of which are attuned to their specific elements. But the real winner here has to go to the animations. Basic combat stuff, red orb is health, blue orb is mana, and we can see our enemy stats at the top. Interestingly, for a game that is clearly trying to be baby's first MMO, they don't actually aggressively hold your hand, respecting that even their expected 13-year-old child can still figure out what 100% on the cards means. This scripted duel gives a good glimpse into the strategic side of wizard dueling, from the humble healing spell to managing your pips, which are a special type of mana cost, letting you build up pips by using buff spells, or unleashing your pips for more devastating ones. I will say that while I love the showcase of combat depth and AAA animations, the animation cycle only adds like half a minute of time for each turn. And I mean, look at this one. Either way, by casting a buffed up AoE spell, we clear up Malastaire's goons. And even though the headmaster says,
Oh my, you look a bit the worse for wear.
I think my guy is looking pretty good. But before we can head off into the game world and meet with other players, we have to know how to chat. Menu chat exists for the same reason as the name wheel, to keep toxic players like me from ruining the mood.
Now you can chat with...
That said, those of us that are 13 plus can just type whatever we want. After talking with Ambrose in his office, we are whisked to Unicorn Street, the first of the many streets in the game. Streets are where most of the action and questing takes place, and again, even these one-off NPCs have great voice acting, albeit British.
Well then, you're just the person, or wizard, I've been waiting for.
Now, streets are interesting. They are mostly filled with enemies on the road, with safe sidewalks if you want to pass through. Since our first quest is to defeat lost souls, I walk up to them to see other players battling it out. Every battle occurs in these occult circles, and while you can join in on them, I have a hard time finding the hitbox. Instead, running into a roaming soul fast tracks me into my own little circle where the fight begins. Despite being a fire wizard, the starter deck gives you a little bit of everything, mostly for damage type coverage, if you don't accidentally fizzle out. Following the quest chain, first we help Private Connolly with the Lost Souls, then Saren Nightchant tasks us to defeat skeletal pirates. It's the fourth time I've had to say this on my channel, but this type of kill X NPC quests is a bit boring and lazy to me. Going back to that baby's first MMO idea, this is the first game I've played that introduced the concept of side quests to its players. Not a problem, but something I did note down. They also say to like the video. I don't know what that's about. On the positive side of the child friendliness is this map, clearly inspired by cutesy zoo and amusement park maps. Unfortunately, with only basic spells, there isn't too much to combat at this point besides click and watch the pretty effects. Next, we're tasked with meeting the leader of the fairies at her hedge maze. Not much of a maze here, Your Highness, but she tasks us with, you guessed it, kill 2 dark fairies. Now, here I get a bit impatient, and instead of walking the safe sidewalk, try to slip through and get pulled into combat. I'm sure there's a crossing the street metaphor, but after accidentally fizzling my first attack, I hover over the flee option, which warns me that it will deplete my mana, and I'll get no credit for the kill. Not too bad, but what it doesn't tell you is that it sends you all the way back to the commons. So, after restoring my mana with these blue wisps, and traveling back to Lady Oriel, she discovers the source of the evil influence in someone called Rattlebones. The fight against Rattlebones is sort of a boss fight, in that it's 2v1, but with no AoE, and Rattlebones having the standard health set, it's more of the same. We do get a tome from him, which when returned to the headmaster, alerts us to some scheme brewing by Malastair. But for us, it's time to become a full-fledged wizard. Mr. Lincoln is the registrar of the wizard school in Wizard City, and these lovely people behind him are the professors of each school of magic. We have the Ice School, Storm School with a dapper frog, and my teacher, Dahlia, of the Fire School. Hey wait, it's literally just the quiz questions. To be fair, there are other schools like Cyrus Drake's Myth School, which, I mean, you look just like the main villain. That's lighthearted foreshadowing. And the Death Teacher, not Professor, since the last Death Professor turned evil. As the fire professor, Dahlia can teach us new fire spells as we level up, starting with our first multi-pip skill, Fire Elf. By opening our spell book, we can slot in the cards we want to draw from. Heading back outside, Mr. Lincoln shows us our unique dorm room, which is sort of like player-owned housing. But remember how I said that Style A and Style B were clearly not part of the original game? Well, here we are, a Style A enjoyer like me, forced into the boys' dorm room. To be fair, there's pretty much nothing to do here right now. Ambrose sends us off to Old Town for our next part of the main story, but a few things catch my eye first. The game has an extremely over-detailed picture book detailing anything that you might see in the game. It's a bit third-grade reading level for my taste, with every single unique resistance written out in plain text, but I do appreciate the effort. Secondly, Abby here gives us a quick tour of the city, showing all the areas and non-combat skills we can work on. We have classics like dueling against other players in the arena, to more unique entries like photomancy. Of course, any game that offers a fishing minigame is gonna have to show me the fishing minigame. Unfortunately, after the tour ends and I make my way back to the fishing tutor, I find that the first fishing skill is unlocked at level 2. The help button also being completely meaningless. Okay, you have to read the book first. And I quote,
"First off, you gotta be in an area of the spiral populated with fish. You'll know you are when the fishing icon appears. Clicking the fish."
And after looking around, I just can't seem to find it. I can see the fish in the water, but the icon just doesn't seem to want to appear. What I do notice is in the presence of a lot of players, the game can sorta chug a bit. But maybe fishing's in a different area, so let's go somewhere else. We spot a roaming pet and go see what's troubling it, in doing so, getting our own little pet. Inside, however, old Judd here is taking the captive pets and trying to turn them into zombies, so let's beat him up. With my newfound buff spell, the complexity of combat ramps up, now allowing me to cast for tons of damage. Judd goes down, we take control of our pets to free the others, and I actually get got by one of the game's jokes.
Maybe we can guess the combo. Let's see. 00001. No, not it. 00002. Not it.
Yep, I saw that smelly guy put in the combo lots of times. It's 00003.
From here, the game splits us into 3 roads, or rather streets. Though to be honest, they're all pretty similar in scope. Starting with Triton Avenue, first things first, we get access to these teleport flags, which let us traverse the streets easier. And in order to help solve the lightning issue on the street, we have to kill 3 haunted minions. And as if this sort of busy work questing couldn't get any worse, my teammate here is taking a suspiciously long time to pick their moves, and now he's completely AFK. Talking to Arthur Griffinbane reveals our mission to save his sister, which starts with killing 0 of 3 rotting fodder. Another thing I notice is that the people I'm joining with are a bit more powerful than I am. Don't know why they're grinding mobs all the way over here, but I'll take the free help. But now onto something not killing 2 out of 3 mobs. Here I find a chest which requires a minigame to open. To be honest, I didn't quite get it at first, even with the directions, but soon enough I figure it out. Collect the key corresponding to each glowing number. But as I settle into rhythm... Now, one thing I love is that despite the game's streets limiting the design space to narrow streets, this street has a boss down below where you can easily watch other players face off. Flip some switches, get shown a little art that is a little too nice to fit in universe, and now Galvanost Tower. If it sounds like I've been harsh on the general main quest objectives, keep in mind it's just that they're a bit boring and bland. I actually really like the combat. And this first dungeon, denoted by the entryway gating, is a prime example. Here we have a fight against the Harvest Lord, and it shows just what the game is truly capable of when you're not spending 10 minutes of time fighting worthless rabble. After dispatching with rabble, we get to chopping at the Harvest Lord's high HP. In the process, I discover that he has a resistance to fire, and as my health drops, I have to make my first meaningful decision. Harvest Lord here has 4 pips saved, and I have 2. Should I use my 2 pip heal now in case he unloads, or risk it by using my strongest 2 pip attack? Of course, I'm way too greedy to give it up, but as the fight continues with a lucky fizzle, I do end up pulling off the heal. And as he eventually does unleash his ultimate attack, I realize that I did in fact chance my own life by being a bit greedy. Either way, it's an exciting fight, and I'd love to have more of these. Though after the fight, I catch a glimpse of this Harvest Lord's chest, requiring me to use crowns to get another loot roll, which of course brings us to the premium store. Wizard 101 is free to play, but has progression systems like the chest, as well as cosmetics to enjoy. To be fair, the chest is only 50 crowns, which using the store I find out is more or less around 10 cents. But there are some cosmetics that when you run the numbers could cost you upwards of $20. I know who you are, and I know just how much money you've spent. And just like every modern MMO, there's a subscription. Returning back, we do learn of some great quality of life, like this return to saved point spell, which lets you essentially mark a spot and then return to it later, pretty much eliminating any frustrating backtracking. But remember how I said that we were sent to 3 separate streets that were more or less the same? Well, heading down to the next street reveals more of the same. Defeat 0 of 3 lumbering trolls, same tutorial for using the marked return. I do try fishing in the waters on this street, no dice, same dungeon fight, but this time I do get a friend to join alongside me. Admittedly, the cutthroat tactic is lost when you have other friends, but I'll never say no to adventuring together.
This boss cheats.
Really?
No.
Strangely, I do encounter what I think is my first real bug, where I think I have to read this lectern for a side quest, but I just can't find the hitbox. To be honest, almost 3 hours in, I'm a bit burnt out from my main dueling grind, so let's explore the wondrous world. I find the pet derby races. Again, kind of a dead minigame, but after a little wait, it puts me in my own game. This one is sort of like Subway Surfers, but you have this boost stamina bar which helps you speed up. Since fishing has all but abandoned me, I try my hand at a different life skill, this time photomancy. You can take selfies, or normal shots, although I'm not really sure why I'm invisible. And yeah, I checked the show character toggle. Lastly, I find this little minigame hub with a bunch of games. I'm always a sucker for games within games, and while this one is pretty simple, it still got me pretty good. Also, I do get a kick out of the classic coding 2.147 billion. So after a whole day in the world of Wizards, here's my thoughts. The game knows its audience and faithfully caters to it. On the flip side, its questing structure is one that only 30-year-old WoW devotees would find amusing. That said, there's a lot here to entertain the short attention span of any child. And me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing to me on Patreon.